Good evening, everyone. If you could take your seats, we're going to get started here right away. My name is Bill Lindsey, and I'm the Richmond City Manager, and I've been asked on behalf of LBNL to welcome everyone and thank you for attending this evening's Richmond Bay Campus Community Workshop. Tonight, we're discussing the long-range development plan for the Richmond Bay Campus of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And once again, thanks everybody for attending. As you know, that Richmond is the preferred site of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and University of California, Berkeley Second Campus. I happen to believe that it's the preferred site for lots of things, but certainly it's a privilege to have the lab as a international leader, global center for research in renewable energy, biosciences, climate change, and much more. An organization that is known internationally for the quality of research, and they did their research and selected Richmond as their home, for the second campus as the preferred site. And we're privileged to have that. The prospect of LBNL and UC Berkeley coming and expanding to Richmond is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to dramatically, positively impact Richmond. The Richmond Bay Campus has the potential to be a true catalyst for positive development in not just in the southern shoreline area, but in the entire city of Richmond. Among the benefits that we perceive coming from the lab are jobs, educational opportunities for Richmond residents, the attraction of additional green businesses, and building an integrated transportation network for that southern shoreline area. The lab and UC Berkeley have been just great partners as we've started on this planning process. They've had a series of community workshops, as you know, the last one being on the science. Tonight's is focusing on the built environment, the long-range development plan for the campus. And as part of that, and you'll see this in the presentation, the City of Richmond is also embarking on a planning process to leverage the development of the second campus by preparing a specific plan for the Southern Gateway area, also an integrated transportation plan. We're going to undertake a supply chain study along with UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business, and we are going to look at investing in employment and training for Richmond residents, all as part of this catalyst development that is LBNL and UC Berkeley. So this is very early on in the process. You're going to see a vision for the campus, but it really marks the beginning of the planning process, and we are inviting your input. The lab and UC Berkeley are very interested in connecting with the community and getting your thoughts about the development of the campus. I had the opportunity again to see a preview of the presentation to be offered by LBNL and UC Berkeley, and I can tell you it's one that really captures the imagination, and it captured my imagination anyway, and I really hope it does the same for you. It is really very exciting. So as we go along here in the process, we invite you to share with us your vision for the Richmond Bay Campus and to stay involved in the planning process in the coming months. So I'm going to be able to sit back and just watch and listen and make some notes myself and turn this over to LBNL and UC Berkeley. And as part of that, I have a pleasure of introducing Dr. Horst Simon, who is the Assistant Lab Director, and he's an internationally recognized expert in computer science and applied mathematics. He was made he joined the lab in 1996 as the director of the newly formed National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center, and was one of the key architects in establishing this center at its new location in Berkeley. So we're very privileged to have a renowned scientist and somebody who is very much connected with the future of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So without further ado, Dr. Horst Simon.
Thank you, Bill, and good evening. It is really one of the great pleasures in this process to be working with the City of Richmond and with the leaders of the City of Richmond. The city leaders like Bill have been very, very strong supporters of our efforts from the very outset. And so I'm very much looking forward to the prospect of a bright future together as we embark on this venture of the Richmond Bay Campus. And of course, I want to thank all of you, the audience tonight. This is already our third meeting, so I very much appreciate that you continue to show your strong interest and bring your ideas and your questions to us and are willing to spend the evening with us. As most of you know, the lab and the University of California system went through a very extensive process to find a potential site to consolidate some of our leased facilities and to provide room for future growth of LBNL. As we said before, some 25% of our staff are currently scattered throughout the East Bay in leased locations away from our main site, which is in the Berkeley Hills above the Berkeley campus. In this process, which is now almost a year ago, we received over 20 proposals from throughout the area, and we narrowed this list down to 7. And of course, the Richmond Field Station was one of the 7. And in January of this year, we were very pleased with the selection of the Richmond Field Station as our preferred site. So here we are 9 months later, and have started the process of working with you. The selection of the Richmond site, which is owned by the University of California, provided an exceptional opportunity for the lab to partner with UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley has already 1 million square feet of research in Richmond at the Richmond Field Station, and therefore the project has become a very strong partnership between UC Berkeley and Berkeley Lab. We've been working together for more than 80 years, and this is just another renewed opportunity in the 21st century to deepen and strengthen the partnership between the National Lab and one of the major research universities in the country. To this partnership, now we're adding the City of Richmond, and we're looking very much forward to work very closely with the city. We believe that the mission of Berkeley Lab and UC Berkeley are tremendously synergistic with the values of Richmond and with your vision for the future of your city. We are very delighted about the strong potential to locate the world's foremost significant energy research portfolio in the biosciences right here in Richmond, and to have you as our neighbors. Originally, and if you look back, there was a long-term 2 million square foot of development that we had envisioned at the lab, but this has been expanded because now we encompass also UC Berkeley growth. So for an eventual long-term build-out, we can look at a site here at the Richmond Bay Campus that could eventually accommodate up to 5.4 million square feet. This is a very tremendous site, and you will hear very soon what we envision in detail about this site. So in order to move into the future, we have at UC Berkeley and Berkeley Lab together prepared a long-range development plan for the site. That plan will provide significant growth for both institutions. In July, we were here in this very same room, and we asked you, without really a detailed plan for the site, and we asked you, the Richmond community, to give us some views about how you would like to see the site developed, what thoughts you have, what issues you would like us to address, and how we should proceed about the various options for the site. So at this time, we hope we have listened, and you'll hear from us of what we heard from you. So we said that the July meeting will be the first in a series of these meetings, and today is the third one. In our first one, we updated the community. We had some opportunities to engage in dialogue at information tables, and this will be very similar tonight. We'll have the same set of tables. In between, we had a second meeting that was on September 6th, where we gathered also here in this building to talk about the research that we at the lab and at campus care so much about, and that we hope to bring to this site. In that meeting, my colleagues from UC Berkeley, Graham Fleming and Kathy Koshland, and my colleague from the lab, Jay Kiesling, gave general overviews about what we have in mind for research. And you heard from 5 young researchers to talk about their research that would be presented in more detail so that you can get an understanding at a more detailed level of what is going to happen if we move to this site. The general research that we will conduct here is already underway and taking place at our facilities in Walnut Creek and in Emeryville. It is conducted, and I want to stress this again, at the most common and the lowest risk biosafety level. We meet and exceed most of the local, state, and federal standards, and we have an excellent safety record, and we will bring this culture of safety to this site here. In our initial phase for this project, we will relocate some 800 jobs to this site. These initial 800 jobs will be largely filled by staff who is currently working for the lab at other sites. But we hope, as the campus grows over the years, that we can attract new funding, that we'll be adding more jobs, and that the campus will grow and become an attractive location for spin-off companies from our research and for companies that are doing compatible work. We also want you to know, because this is a question of general interest to the community here, that Berkeley Lab always ongoing has of the order of 200 to 300 open job openings at any given time. So if you're interested in that topic, please come again to the table that we have about job opportunities and also small business opportunities at the lab. In the first meeting, we have received many of your comments on cards, through email, in written messages. And so we're back today to bring you a preliminary plan for the site. We have brought both campus and lab planners and our consultants to focus on preliminary physical plans for the site and the considerations that have brought to us to where we are tonight. The presentation that will begin shortly will show you the discussion that is about the vision for the long-term development of the site. The size of a campus and the number of people envisioned to be here and to work here by this document set an upper bound, the limits for this site. It may take many decades to get there. In order to reach this full vision, we have to look for future opportunities, and we will use this dialogue process that we're establishing with you as we go along and as we grow the site. Each step of the way, you will be involved. But it's very important that you're also involved from the very first step on, and that you keep the bigger picture in mind. Again, we are here to share our work with you and to ask you what you think. With this, I would like to introduce Barbara Maloney from the BMS Design Group, and she will walk us through the physical planning that we're doing for the site. Barbara.
Thank you, Horst. And thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It's very exciting to see lots of you here, and I hope you'll find what I have to share with you exciting as we do. I wanted to echo something that Horst said, which is that it is a real pleasure to be working here, not only with the Lab and UC Berkeley, which of course is exciting because of the world-class nature of everything that they do, but also with the city of Richmond. And I don't think it was any accident that the lab and the campus chose the city of Richmond as the site. I've been fortunate to work with the city on a couple of projects over the years, and have been always just tremendously impressed by the commitment of the community, the leadership, and staff towards working together to make a better future for the city. So this, I think, is going to be a tremendously important step for the city and the lab and the campus to move forward toward a future vision. To start out, the lab and the campus have been talking about this and working very closely with us as we've been going through this process, and have talked, have written things down, have talked about what this place is supposed to be. And this, I think, is an important statement that encapsulates what both institutions are looking for here, this shared vision between the lab and UC Berkeley. It's a state-of-the-art, inspirational and sustainable place to produce world-class collaborative science for healthy living and sustainable communities. All those words are all carefully selected, and they have a lot of meaning, I think, for all the folks, all the participants who expect to be involved here at the lab. And I think they should resonate and hopefully mean something to the community as well. On the agendas that you've received, the material on this slide, these objectives, I believe, are printed on that. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but again, as with that vision for the site, this articulates a series of objectives, most of which I'm going to be going into as I walk you through the plan ideas. But it's a lot about not only what this place is going to be, but what its effect and opportunities are for the surrounding parts of Richmond, and really how it's going to function and operate in the many years in the future that it will be here. As Horst mentioned, this is a tremendous opportunity for the city of Richmond and for, of course, the lab and the university. This site, which is the Richmond Bay Campus in the city of Richmond, which is in the circle on the top part of the slide, becomes part of the Bay Area's many centers of innovation and creativity that are located around the Bay. As probably everyone knows, the Bay Area is probably the preeminent U.S. Center for creativity, innovation, technology, and all of that. And it's due in no small part to the diversity and creativity and culture of the area that attracts the best and the brightest, and of course also to these fine universities that are located in this area. So you've got the lab, just in the northern part of the Bay Area here, of course, you've got this new Richmond Bay campus, you've got LBNL and UC Berkeley in the East Bay, you've got the new campus of UCSF, the Mission Bay campus, which is going to have hospitals and medical research and so on, not to mention everything else as you move down the peninsula and down the East Bay. So this is going to be, I think, an important addition to this this regional center of creativity, and one that I think has, because of that, the opportunity to really put the city of Richmond on the map. As Horst mentioned and Bill mentioned, the Richmond Bay campus occupies a really important site here on the waterfront in the city of Richmond. It's shown in the blue. I have a pointer here, but I don't think it's going to do much good. Barrett really doesn't show up, so I'll have to explain this to you. The Bay campus is in the blue. It's sort of the T-shaped site in the blue, slightly to the right in that image. And the current general plan for the city of Richmond has preliminary land uses identified for the surrounding sites. So to the right and to the left and above the Richmond Bay campus site, you'll see it's indicated for light manufacturing R&D, which is similar to what would be happening on the Bay campus itself. We also have, of course, Marina Bay residential uses, the Ford plant with SunPower, and then plans for continuing development of new uses in the area near and above the marina for mixed use and other kinds of higher intensity mixed uses. This is going to be a hub with good transportation with the ferry. We've got BART nearby, 3 BART stations nearby as well. So as Bill said, the city's going to be undertaking a specific plan to take a closer look at this area. Given that the Bay campus is coming here, what further direction can the city provide to property owners or potential developers in terms of what they'd like to see, what you would like to see in this area? So I encourage you all, when that project gets started in the next couple of months, to also participate in community meetings for that, because that will allow you to have a role in planning not only this campus, but also the area as a whole. The program for the site that's been talked about, I think it's important to remember that a campus of this sort generally takes quite a long time to build out. It can take as long as 40 or 50 years. But you never know. The market, research, many factors contribute to this. The Mission Bay campus of UCSF has built out more than halfway in just 10 years, so it's very hard to predict, but most likely it will be over a 40-year period of time. We anticipate that the campus can accommodate up to 5.4 million square feet of space, and I'll show you in later slides how we anticipate that that would lay out and what it might look like. But generally speaking, those buildings would be no more than 5 stories in height and would transition as they move south towards the bay front. So this is not a high-rise development or anything of the sort. It's really appropriate for the kinds of work that's going to be done there. It's also anticipated that there could be a population on the site of as many as 10,000 people. And that, of course, represents a great opportunity for surrounding uses, for patronage of local businesses and that kind of thing when the campus does, and as the campus builds out. The campus itself will primarily consist of research labs and associated offices, conference rooms, support facilities, as well as places to eat, get coffee. There is an interest and intention to do an auditorium, a mixed-use, mixed facility, multi-use space that will be used certainly by the lab and the campus for various conferences and get-togethers and discussions that they will have, but that will be made available also to the community for its use potentially, and could be used for educational programs and so on. And then of course there will be the supporting parking and open spaces and operations facilities that are needed to operate this kind of a facility. The population of the campus will largely be researchers and faculty, assisted by graduate students, postdocs, and some undergraduates, although not a large undergraduate population, as well as support administrative and operational staff. Now, the first phase of the project is, of course, much, much, much smaller than the long-term vision for the campus. As Horst said, this is an opportunity to bring together facilities that are currently scattered around the Bay Area because there wasn't room on the Hill site to provide these facilities. And they're primarily bioscience facilities, bioscience labs, such as the Joint Genome Institute, Joint Bioenergy Institute, Advanced Biofuels, Life Sciences, and Earth Sciences. But in a microcosm, and it's expected that this will be probably a minimum of 300,000 square feet and a maximum of potentially 800,000 square feet in the first phase. It will be a microcosm of the full build out of the campus. So it'll have labs, offices, support facilities, some parking, and inevitably some multipurpose space and food service. The start of operations, though, the building is being, the first building or buildings are being thought about right now and programmed. There will still require selection of architects, design drawings, and even final siting and everything. So it's not anticipated that the first facilities would be in operation until at least 2017, sometime between 2017 and 2020. This is just an interesting comparison, perhaps to give you a sense of the scale of the site. If you can see, the dashed outline is the outline of the Richmond Bay Campus site, and that's overlaid on the left on the UC Berkeley core campus, and on the right on the UCSF Mission Bay campus. So you can see these are obviously, and I think you probably all at least have been to the Berkeley campus, you can get a sense of the scale of the place. Now, the Berkeley campus has a much, much, much greater program than this site will have because it has many taller buildings throughout the site. But it is kind of interesting to give you a sense of the scale of what the campus will ultimately be. Now, the campus has a series of goals specifically relating to research, and they're articulated here, very similar to that opening statement, that opening vision that I gave you. The primary intention here is the discovery of solutions for 21st century challenges to energy, environment, human health, and the global economy. And here's a listing of a variety of specific endeavors that the campus will be undertaking, a wide range of potential applications of these kinds of uses. In addition, though, the lab and the campus have discussed at length other aspirations, and those include that this should be an open campus. If any of you are familiar with the Hill campus of the lab right now, it is a fenced facility, a secure facility, but this campus, like the UC Berkeley campus, is intended to be open so that it will provide a resource to the community for access to the open space and any of the outdoor exhibits and those kinds of things that might, as well as, of course, educational opportunities, auditorium, that kind of thing. As I think both Bill and Horst indicated, there's a tremendous opportunity for a positive economic impact from the campus on local businesses. Education programs, as I mentioned. We're also very interested in the opportunities and the possibilities of incorporating art into the site. Richmond has such a robust program and community related to the arts, and this is a large site, and so there's a lot of opportunity in the long run to incorporate environmental art, other kinds of art that are generated in the local community. And of course, being on the bay, we have a great opportunity to connect to the existing Bay Trail and to provide additional points of contact to that Bay Trail. So to quickly go through just some of the background on the site and the background to our thinking about how the campus might want to lay out, again, we've got the site here shown in the outline in its context, surrounded particularly on the north and east as well as on the southwest by other industrial uses or vacant sites. The total acreage of the site is 195 acres, but that includes quite a bit of acreage that is actually out in the bay and is of course not developable. So the actual, what we call the upland acres, are 136 acres, and that's the area that's shown in the outline here. There are currently, surprisingly to me even, 81 structures out on the site right now. Some of them are very small sheds, that kind of thing. Some larger things, including a shaking table for the university for earthquake research. And of course, there's a book storage facility that's probably the biggest building out there right now. And there are actually, again, surprisingly, 1 million square feet of space out on the site right now. Again, it's scattered among these 81 buildings, a variety of sizes. And there's research going on out there today, and there are offices, of course, as well as storage that occurs on the site. The connectivity relating to the site is very important, we think, and we're really pleased that the city is going to be undertaking this transportation circulation study because it's certainly in the campus's interest to see better connections throughout the region to and from the campus. So we're hoping to see opportunities to improve connections to BART, so that people can bicycle or walk to BART and then bicycle or walk to the station. Perhaps there'll be enhanced shuttles as well. Connections to the ferry when the ferry is implemented, and connections to downtown and other parts of the city of Richmond where, again, the large campus population can help to patronize local businesses. So the campus and the lab will be very interested in how these two studies that the city is going to undertake proceed. On the site itself, if you've been on the site, it's a very interesting site. From 580, really your only awareness of it are some 100-foot tall eucalyptus hedgerows that are out there. It's really about all you can see from a distance of the site, and they are quite prominent. They are, of course, not native in and of their own right, but they are home to monarch butterflies and bird species and so on. So we'll be looking carefully at how we can manage that particular resource. There are wetlands on the site down on the south edge near the bay, and there are grasslands in the center of the site. There's also views, of course, from the site in virtually 360 degrees to Marin, to the East Bay Hills, out to the bay, of course, where you can see San Francisco, Treasure Island, and so on. So there are a lot of resources on this site for us to take advantage of. And of course, as I mentioned, the Bay Trail as well. Whoops. And so just a few images from the site. On the top, the natural features of the site. You can see on the left views from the southern portion of the site out to San Francisco. That is when there's no fog. In the center of the site, you can see the grassland areas, and then on the right, the wetlands and the slough. And on the bottom is just a sampling of the wide range of buildings and facilities that you currently find on site. This map is, it's the land use map, and this is actually, or something very close to it, is going to wind up in the long-range development plan itself. A long-range development plan is something that the University of California requires of all of its campuses, and it's intended to be sort of like the city's general plan, a flexible but fairly precise document that gives direction and makes it clear what the intentions are of the campus as it develops in the future. And probably the most important diagram in the entire document is this land use plan. And what it indicates is very important, and that is that the areas shown in green, and I realize this isn't very, doesn't show up very well probably for you in the color, but the smaller areas that are outlined down here in the wetland areas and going up there, those represent the wetlands, the grasslands, and associated natural features. This plan indicates that those areas will be retained as open space throughout the life of the plan. The blue areas, the rest of the area, which is where existing development already occurs, is where future development will be located. So it very clearly indicates that the lab and the campus's intention to preserve the natural features of the site, the grasslands, the wetlands, and other natural features in perpetuity. So then building off of that land use plan, what was the process we went through? Well, I think as many of you probably know, there was a plan produced originally that was the first concept. It was prepared in 2010, and this was the first concept for the campus. And it was for the purposes of presenting to the lab and to be used as a basis in the competition for which site would ultimately be selected. And you'll see that it's actually in many ways very similar to where we've wound up now 2 years hence, because it identifies a lot of open space, usable open space. It identifies the natural open spaces as I showed on the previous land use plan. But it also identifies building sites. It identifies spaces between those buildings that can be gathering places for researchers or the community, places that are hopefully sheltered from the wind, where people can get together, have lunch, have discussions, and so on. It showed a capacity of something in the range of 3 to 6 million square feet. So what we needed to do was then build upon that plan, have some thoughts, some further discussions about what the lab and the campus wanted as they continued to think about this and what their priorities were. And so we started discussions on that topic, and two primary principles emerged out of those discussions. The first one was connectivity, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a primary goal of the site to allow community access into it. And that's the first item that's noted here under connectivity. Again, that it'll be an open campus and one that will allow access not just from one gate or one entry, but from all around the site, because we want to connect and provide a welcoming front door to not only the Richmond community, but also to the adjoining researchers and other of the innovation economies that are very likely to be innovation companies that are likely to be attracted to this site by virtue of the campus and the lab campus. So we also want to, though, at the same time, make sure we have gathering spaces for the folks who are working on the lab, want to make sure that we create a scale of development that, because 10,000 people it's quite a big population, we want to break that down into more manageable scale for the people that are going to be working there, and then also ensure, of course, that getting to the site is easy, and to the degree that we possibly can, minimize single occupant auto trips to and from the site. And to make the site a place that you can stay all day and you can run into nearby community to get some of your errands run, perhaps ride a bike that might be provided on site for bike sharing, that kind of thing. The second important principle that's been guiding the plan is that of sustainability. And you hear an awful lot about sustainability these days in planning throughout the communities, particularly in the Bay Area, but given that we've got a lab and a campus that are doing research on some of the critical aspects of sustainability and some of the technical side of sustainability, this is a really important opportunity for the campus to be a model of sustainability. And so that has to do with a lot of the physical aspects of the campus. Buildings need to be sustainable. The site itself wants to be walkable. We don't want people driving around where they're going. And we need to make sure that we've got energy efficiency, low water use, minimize waste, and all those additional aspects of sustainability. Based on a lot of those conversations, we started looking at a whole series of different ways that you could design the campus. And these are just some sketches from that period of time. But again, you'll note that consistently on all of these, that center portion, which is where the grasslands, the wetlands, and all of that are located, remain constant and remain as open space throughout that. So that was clearly an important criterion for us to be consistent about. So what I'm going to show you now is a series of the elements of the plan and describe to you some of the elements of the plan. You can see underlaying this, there's a an initial, it's essentially a massing study of buildings on the campus and how they could lay out. And this does accommodate the 5.4 million square feet that we're tasked with accommodating. These building footprints, though, are very generic looking, of course, and they're really just placeholders for what would inevitably be more architecturally interesting than what we're showing here. But this first diagram indicates what the pedestrian and bicycle network might be like. And in the spirit of that open campus, you can see that there are many ways for pedestrians or bicyclists to enter the campus, almost, between every building, but certainly at key points throughout. One important thing to note, I think, is that this is an extension of Regatta, this line right here, and you can see that it goes through the site and goes out, goes from the east to the west, or the west to the east, through the site. So this will be an important way for the community to access the campus. We'd like to put priorities on people that are walking or biking, but there will also be auto access. There'd probably be a drop-off at that point so that people could come and participate in activities on the site. And also on the lower right and the lower left, if you can't read it, it says trail staging area, and these would be new and improved connections to the Bay Trail that would be provided either on streets that are partially owned by the campus or public streets, but that the campus would help facilitate the creation of these connections. So again, lots of connections all around the periphery of the site for pedestrians and bicycles. Vehicular circulation, in contrast, is generally limited to the periphery of the campus. We don't want cars traversing through the site. We want to make sure that we can ensure that pedestrians and bicyclists are safe and that they're not going to be in conflict with vehicles. So the primary circulation, of course, coming off of the freeway is the closest interchange is the Regatta interchange on the very north of the site. And then vehicles would be able to circulate around the campus, and the small arrows coming in and the Ps indicate where parking structures might be located. So folks that are that 10,000 person population that's commuting to the site would be intercepted at the periphery of the campus, and then they would walk to their destinations or bike to their destinations throughout the site. We're also beginning to think about the shuttle operations. There are already shuttles that run from the lab and the UC Berkeley campus to this site, and we imagine that those will probably be increased consistently over time as the campus grows so that there's easy access. And so again, people are discouraged from driving their cars to campus, and the S's indicate where shuttle stops could be located throughout the site. So again, putting a big priority on pedestrian and bike access, but still providing efficient vehicular access as well as service access that will be required throughout the site. We're, in terms of the lab itself, we're looking at identifying some specific locations that we're calling activity areas. These would be the places where we would locate things like dining halls, coffee shops, auditorium, meeting rooms, those kinds of things. These are places where, in particular, the lab population, but also visitors to the site might interact and have lunch, have coffee, talk about their latest computer issue or research opportunity. So these are places that we see as being really important to the functioning and success of the campus site. The asterisks indicate places where there would be an emphasis on community access. So you can see there would be a range of those throughout the site, and probably depending on what the purpose of the visit would be, whether it's a special event or whether it's just to come in and walk around the site and see what's going on, see the site art or something like that, would depend on where you might, how you might access the campus. And again, then down on the bottom, the two asterisks indicate possible locations for improved Bay Trail access. Open space on the campus, again, big idea, consistent through all these, is keeping the natural open space intact. And then we'll have a series of different kinds of open spaces, as I said earlier, throughout the campus. Spaces that are more like quads, spaces that are like quiet courtyards, and all of which we're going to be working very hard to protect from the wind, because occasionally there is a lot of wind on the site to be concerned about. And then the way we're looking at laying out the site lends itself to creating neighborhoods, and those are these circles that we've noted here. And those may come in handy ultimately as a strategy for development and may suggest ways that the campus development might be phased logically so that you fully develop a part of the campus so that it feels complete and it's got lots of activity and things going on. But that's, again, we don't know the timing or the phasing of future phases of the campus, so, but that would provide a potential structure. This is the current conceptual location of the first phase that I described earlier. So again, it could be as much as 600,000 or 800,000 square feet of space. It would be located on the southerly portion of the site, close to the bay. And the programs, as I mentioned earlier, are likely to be the Joint Genome Institute, the Joint Bioenergy Institute, Advanced Biofuels, Life Sciences, and Earth Sciences. And again, this is collecting those various leased spaces that are currently scattered around the Bay Area and bringing them all into one closer, more efficient collection. So out of all of that, this is our current concept plan for the campus. And that's the plan that's been underlaying those various diagrams that I've been showing you. So again, you can see on these, the gray buildings are the parking structures, the white light buildings are potential research facilities, future facilities. Again, the buildings don't represent real footprints because every one of these buildings will have to be designed by an architect and will be certainly responsive to whatever the specific program is at the time and the needs at the time. So it will never turn out just like this, but this provides a template and a roadmap, if you will, for what it might ultimately look like. Again, all the things that we've been trying to accomplish here, multimodal access, a variety of kinds of spaces, and we've, as you can see here, there's, as compared with the original concept plan, which had a large, wide open space traversing the right-hand part of the site from the bottom all the way to the top. You can see we've kind of taken that space, narrowed it, and then turned it at different angles. The wind can be pretty significant out here on the site, so we're attempting to do that to deflect the wind and create a more a sunny, warm environment that people will want to be outside in. There's also the possibility, because of the kind of work that the lab does, that at some point in the future there might be what's called a future scientific facility. It may or may not happen. It's hard to tell, impossible to predict. These things really have to do with national research priorities. But this site would be able to accommodate one if it were needed, and this is what's shown there in purple is the potential layout of one. So you can see with a few adjustments to buildings and layout, we can accommodate that kind of a facility if it ever comes along. This is certainly of more interest to the lab and the campus than it is to you, because it would probably be located entirely underground and you'd never actually see it. I just wanted to wrap up here on campus character. Those of you who came to the meeting that we had a couple of months ago on campus character saw one of our team members, Scott, talk about architecture and style and character of buildings and the site. And so I wanted to just summarize for you a lot of what came up in that discussion for those of you who might have missed it. For building design, and if you were here, you'll remember that in addition, Scott presented a whole range of different kinds of building types, from more typical research kind of slick modern buildings to buildings that are more associated with a waterfront and kind of everything in between. And we had voting on those images. People could put dots on those images and let us know what you liked the best. And these are the images that got the most votes. And so these are the ones that we are taking clues from in terms of what we will ultimately prepare in the way of guidelines for what buildings should look like. Again, for purposes of these kinds of plans, you don't specify everything. You don't try to tell the architects exactly what to do, but you're trying to give them a flavor of what the community and the campus wants it to be in the long run. And so I think the words to describe the architectural images are very much derived from waterfront and the sort of honest, simple buildings that you see on the waterfront, like the Ford plant on the upper left there. The upper right and lower right are actually an aquarium facility in Maine. And then on the lower left is a visitor facility that's at Land's End in San Francisco. So buildings that seem, that are simple, that aren't overly contrived, that aren't overly fancy. I mean, these are working buildings, they're labs. They've got, you know, a real purpose for what they have to do. So we're not trying to create some fancy, kitschy, strange, you know, mission style, Stanford looking kind of place out here. And then, oops, sorry, Stanford lovers. But at the same time, these are modern buildings and they have to accommodate a lot of technological things, and so they will inevitably begin to have some of the character that you see in these more modern buildings that are laboratories that are located on various campuses. And also on the upper left, that's a new building at the UCSF campus. It's a neurosciences building. And what's particularly nice about it is that it's very transparent. So if you're a visitor and you're walking around the site, you can really begin to get a sense of what's going on the inside. You can actually see the work in the labs. And then also, that's a good example of a quiet, protected courtyard that's a nice, sunny and warm place. These are some of the images that got the most votes on what the site ought to be like. And on the top, you can see these were images of the open space, the natural open space, a real interest in not only preserving that open space, but then finding ways to get people out into it and have interpretive elements out there so that you could walk through those, perhaps on boardwalks, out into the grasslands and even into the wetlands, and have some signs that might tell you what it is that you're looking at, what kind of a grass is that, what species nest here or stop here, or make their homes here. And so there's a tremendous opportunity on this site for an educational program to address that. And then on the bottom, these are images of the kinds of open spaces, the courtyards, and people places that would be found on the campus, where people can gather, researchers as well as visitors, when they come to the site. And then art and interpretation on the site. I don't have to repeat to you that the city's got such a great arts culture and arts community that there's some really great opportunities to incorporate art into the site. And then, of course, on the bottom again, to interpret the natural environment, this rich natural environment that's out there. So just to quickly review the process, we're preparing the long-range development plan now. That is being accompanied by preparation of an environmental document that will assess any potential impacts of the site and will find mitigations for it. So this is an important process that's going on right now. That won't be complete. Neither of those two documents will be complete until next year, and the expectation, the hope is to take those to the regents of the University of California for approval in November of 2013. So there's still lots and lots of work to be done, and what I've been showing you are concepts and it's not final plans yet. There will be a number of upcoming meetings still, and that'll include another community meeting in November or December for further updates on where we stand on all of this. I'm going to give this back to Horst, but I wanted to first note we want to really encourage you to stick around. We have a series of tables set up in the back there that will, if you've got questions about anything that I've been talking about or other things relating to the campus that you want some answers to or you want to talk to an expert, these tables are all staffed by folks from the university or from the lab or some of the consultants like myself, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. The names of the tables and the topics of the tables are on here, but with that, I'm going to give it back to Horst.
Thank you, Barbara. Following up this presentation, I would like to make a couple of comments and give you a preview of what is going to happen next, both this evening but also long term. So following this meeting, we will actually start launching the California Environmental Quality Act and the National Environmental Quality Act process, the CEQA and NEPA process. And that process will begin with a scoping hearing to gather comments, again, to inform our environmental impact report that will be prepared to discuss how we're going to address any and all of the environmental issues that arise in connection with this project. So we will invite you to come to a future meeting and offer your thoughts and concerns so we may fully address them in the environmental documents that we'll prepared. This future meeting will be happening in the November-December timeframe. In 2013, we will then come back with a hearing on the draft environmental impact report, and we will also be presenting to you a draft version of a long-range development plan, all informed by your comments that we are listening here tonight, and of course continue to listen to throughout the process as we move forward. So just to review this quickly, I said a lot of words and meetings and what's going to happen. Here's the tentative schedule one more time. In November, December, there will be another meeting here, an initial scoping session for the environmental review work. In 2013, we will continue the long-range development plan and the environmental review. We want to complete both by about a year from now in fall of 2013. And then hopefully we can get design underway and site preparation ready in 2014 for the first phase that Barbara just described to you. 2015, 2016 would be then construction years for the first phase. 2017, 2018, hopefully we'll be completing construction and be able to move in the first phase. And while all this is going on, but certainly before 2019 and then many years beyond, we will think about future phases and future development and continue the process of building out the site. So that's the long-term view. So the short-term view for what's going to happen here next is that we've learned at our first community meeting that actually the best place to engage a larger community is to have Q&A with the experts at the information table. So we are doing again, So we're going again, giving you the opportunity to go to these tables and talk to the experts if you choose. We also have, again, these comment cards. You should be able to get one if you haven't picked one up in the entrance. And please fill out these complete comment cards with your thoughts or questions. A third way of going about providing input is to email us. The email address is very short and simple, rbc@lbl.gov, Richmond Bay Campus @lbl.gov. I think that's easy to remember. We noticed over the first two meetings there's a set of questions that are recurring, so we will be posting frequently asked questions on our website. That feature should be up very soon. And these will be general questions on all the 8 areas that we have tables for, and we will continue to revise and update that website as we receive more questions from you via these cards or via email. So you've seen the list of the 8 tables. They're also in your program, so I encourage you to go to these tables, ask your questions. But before we do this, and I want to make this very short and focused, I would like to ask you if you have any questions specifically to Barbara's presentation and the current very first look at a potential long-range development plan. And I think Russ is coming around with a microphone.
Dr. Henry Clark. I had one question concerning the underground building that you referred to. I believe you said that some type of national priority research may possibly be happening there. I didn't really quite follow that. So in terms of what do you mean by that? And is it some type of top secret research that the building has to be underground, or what's the deal?
Okay, so that gives me, thank you for the question. That gives me first an opportunity to stress again, and I have to always say this, just to remind you, we are not doing any secret classified work at Berkeley Lab. It's all open, unclassified basic research that is accessible to anyone who is scientifically interested. There's nothing secret and nothing confidential. The future scientific facility is at this point a possibility that we may want to pursue, and what was referred to by Barbara as national priorities is a question on, will there be funding for anything big like this? Will this happen in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? It was one of the things that we had asked originally the site to be able to accommodate, because LBNL, Berkeley Lab, and UC Berkeley were looking at opportunities for growth. And so we wanted to go to a site that was large enough to potentially house something big. We didn't want to sort of forget about this since we asked for this in the RFQ, so we wanted to show that we're still thinking about this, but at this point I would say this is a hypothetical future facility. The reason that we say it's underground is that we were just looking at things such as the advanced light source and other things at the lab which require some amount of protection, so it makes more sense to think about doing this underground.
I have a question. My name is Mary Selva, and I'm the president of the Richmond Annex Neighborhood Council. And we reviewed the RFQ and you're coming to the Richmond Field Station, and it is very exciting. But we're kind of surprised tonight to learn something new, which was just introduced tonight from the initial proposal under the RFQ of the campus being up to 2 million square feet of building floor areas. And tonight we hear it's going to be more than doubled to 5.4 million square feet of floor area buildings, and also an increase of 5,000 employees to 10,000 employees when built out. Also, the access to the open space and wetland areas, I think we would be concerned about and should be protected, because doubling the size of that campus, building floor areas and employees and the population, in my personal opinion, in trying to preserve the shorelines over the years and all the communities there, would have a concern about that. So we just noticed that change tonight.
Yes. Well, thank you for your input.
Buffer zones are important.
Thank you for your input and concern. I said this initially, and I think Barbara said it, but I think it's an important point which is worth repeating. So first, the long-range development plan sets upper limits of what's possible. That is an aspirational goal, but that doesn't mean that we will ever get there. So we went out in the RFQ originally, if you remember this, it was just Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. And at that point, what our needs that we envisioned for the near future was of the order of 2 million square feet. So we went out with the RFQ for the 2 million square feet. We selected the Richmond site, which happened to be the University of California site that's owned already by UC Berkeley. So after we made this selection, UC Berkeley, our colleagues, got very excited about the potential on this site and said that they would like to join us in the development, and they have their own set of ideas and plans. Those ideas and plans are exactly that, aspirational goals. They're not there yet. What we have today, for sure, is what we call the phase one, which would be a consolidation of the existing facilities elsewhere. So, yes, you are right. There is a much larger square footage on the site, but this is an outer limit, and the long-range development plan, it's just like if the city of Richmond would put out a plan, say we want to grow to 250,000 or 300,000 people here. That's possible to put them in the site, but whether that will ever happen, who knows? So that's on that part. So maybe I'll turn the second question over to Barbara, because I forgot the second question.
Oh. So did I.
There was a second question. Could you repeat the second question?
About the population and the natural open spaces. I think your concern is good because on any site like this where we're trying to set aside sensitive lands and we want them to be protected and we want them to flourish, that's always important. Now, I think it's also important to note, though, that these grasslands and the wetlands, they need some maintenance too, and so in the case of the grasslands, there's going to be quite a bit of restoration that needs to be done as well as on the wetlands, because a lot of it is not pristine. But by the same token, BCDC and the communities around the Bay Area have all committed rather strongly to encouraging the maximum possible public access to the waterfront and to the amenities and resources of the waterfront. And that's why this extensive network of trails, multi-use trails for bicyclists and walkers and so on, is being established all around the periphery of the Bay Area. And so I think, you know, that certainly as the campus develops, I'm sure there will be attention paid to restricting access or discouraging access to the sensitive areas, and that wherever possible, boardwalks or other trails might be added where it won't do any damage to those resources. But it's a difficult but important balancing act to do to encourage understanding and appreciation of those resources and access to see those resources while still protecting the resource. And that's a balancing act that, you know, communities all around the Bay are having to do every day.
So I think I'd like to take maybe 2 more questions because I want to give a larger number of people the opportunity to speak at the tables.
Will the PowerPoint presentation or the maps be online so we can study them?
I see nodding in the back, so the answer is yes. In all likelihood, they will be at the Richmond Bay Campus site where you also find the frequently asked questions. Yes. Last question then, if there is any more.
This question is to Barbara regarding energy use on the campus and the potential for net zero energy as part of design.
Yes, absolutely. It's a little challenging to do that with labs because they do have they can have intensive energy use. But there are those kinds of buildings that are being designed these days all around the country. And so, especially given that the lab is such a leader in energy research of all kinds, we're looking at ways to minimize energy use. We're looking at the possibility of photovoltaics on the site and other kinds of cutting-edge energy reduction and generation options. So I can tell you that the LRDP will be committed to sustainable design and the minimum necessary energy use, and with luck, that will include zero net energy.
Okay, so before we break, I would like to do 2 more things. I'd like to recognize Council Members Jeff Ritterman and Nat Bates, somewhere in the back, and also staff from Representative George Miller's office who all have joined us this evening. Again, as I said, it's wonderful to be in Richmond, a community where we get attention from everybody, from council members, from the city administration, and from the local representative. The second thing I want to say before we break for the tables is the lab has an open house on Saturday, October 13. That's open to the community. We've done this for 2 years in a row. It has been a tremendous success, and I'm telling you, you should sign up if you want to go there really quickly because we have 7,000 spots there, and we're almost full. So this is sort of going, gone. I would really like to see folks from Richmond come and walk around the lab and see what we're doing to get firsthand access to our science. So please register. And if you say it's closed and you're a Richmond citizen and resident, then there are some people here in the audience who can help you to get still a ticket. Okay, that's a special deal this evening. So with this, here are the tables. Please wander around, ask questions, and engage our experts in questions and answers. Thank you very much.